Flag on the play. For the last 2 years, there has been no potential date action. Hi, welcome back to my channel, Jasmine Figures It Out, and today I am going to discuss how I'm figuring out whether to go with rocks versus mulch. We're talking landscaping here. I am going to be talking about my exterior home landscaping, and in this video, I'm probably also going to give a little update on the exterior of my home, some before and afters, and I have a surprise story time dating. I don't know what to call it, not even dating, but it's just a story time. So let's get into it. Before I get all the way started, if you're new here or if you've been here a couple times, watched a couple videos, whatever the case may be, I am trying to grow my channel. Shameless plug. So do your girl a favor and hit the subscribe button, like, share, comment, anything helps. Anything helps the channel grow. So before I get into the pros and cons of rocks versus mulch, let's talk about how this all started. So my home, I brought a new construction home and it came with mulch and some like shrubbery or like plants outside of the house, but it was like a startup, like not really meant to be like the end all be all, but a good start. It looked all right. But as I got into like month and a half into living here, it started to look kind of bad. The mulch started to like fly everywhere. Along the side of my house, I'll show some pictures of how it looked. It was just mulch. So I wanted to start doing something so that it actually looked like someone lived in this home. And I noticed like a lot of my neighbors on other streets, they have like nice landscaping. They're doing little things to their house, adding lights, adding plants, rocks, things like that. So I did mulch. I was thinking about rock, but I planted some plants. I did mulch and I bought some mulch and I spent a couple $100 just to get lights and mulch and things like that. And I felt pretty good. I'm like, okay, this looks a lot better. But then I started to really kind of think about whether or not that was the best option. So now I'm really thinking about long term. Do I want to go with a rock landscaping or mulch landscaping? I am kind of pleased with how it's looking right now, but going into the pros and cons of rocks versus mulch, you'll kind of see how I'm rethinking like what I'm going to do long term, if I'm going to stick with the mulch or if I'm going to go over to rocks. So let's go over some pros and cons, shall we? Let's start with the mulch. Here are the pros of mulch. Better growth. Mulch can nearly double how fast trees and plants grow. Less water. Mulch improves rainwater infiltration and soil water storage and reduces water evaporation. So you spend less time wasting money watering. More nutrients. As mulch breaks down, it adds nutrients that plants need to thrive. Fewer weeds. Mulch can reduce seed sprouting. It's just the right temperature, so it keeps roots protected in the winter and cool in the summer. And it reduces compaction and erosion. I don't know what that is, but those are some good pros. Cons, you have to replace it annually. I think much more than annually because I've already replaced my mulch. If it dries up in any little bit, when they come around with those blowers, that mulch just blows everywhere. It goes all over your sidewalk. It goes all over your driveway. And I'm just like constantly sweeping mulch back into where it goes. And so you lose mulch and I feel like you have to replace it a lot for it to look good. And I feel like it fades like in the color and as it dulls, it doesn't look good. So knowing me and how I will want things to look, I will be replacing my mulch a lot. Too much of a good thing. Adding a layer of mulch more than 2 to 3 inches can impair water movement and decay the base of plants. That's something to think about. Didn't really realize that. So if you keep adding the mulch on, ooh, that could be bad. Too early, late blooms. Mulching too early may slow how quickly the ground warms, which means you could see blooms uh, a bit later than normal. Too late, mulch stops weeds from germinating. If too late, it will stop them as well. Check for seeds. Some mulch has seeds in them, which causes weeds. So those are the cons of mulch. I think the biggest con for mulch for me is that it can be really messy, it fades, and it doesn't look good. I feel like it does not keep its the appeal of it, like how it looks so good right when it comes out the bag. That doesn't last that long. And for me, another con of having my plants in mulch is that the weeds. You can see the weeds sprout up, and I feel like it doesn't stop weeds like how the pro says. Like I am constantly going out there and picking out weeds. And even though like at my community, the HOA covers, like they come out and they pick the weeds once a month, but they just chop them. They don't pull them up from the roots. So they just keep coming. And once a month is not nearly enough. So as those weeds start coming up, it's just so much weed picking. And so I feel like with the mulch, it takes a lot of work for it to look nice. And that's my biggest con for mulch. Now let's go into the pros and cons of rocks for your landscaping. So the pros of using rocks is low maintenance. You almost never need to replace them. Lower cost because they're long lasting. You don't have to keep replacing them. So you make the one-time investment. It costs a little bit more upfront to put the rocks out there, but you're not replacing rocks all the time. So it can cost less long run. Fireproof, that's a biggie. I mean, I don't think we have fires out here, but if you live in an area with wildfires, rocks provides a defensible space since they're non-flammable. Weeds be gone. Rocks can keep weeds away longer since seeds have a difficult time germinating through them. That's a huge one. That kind of goes into the appeal of the look of the weeds. And wind resistance. Heavy rocks are great at preventing soil erosion in windy areas. Perfect for rock and cacti gardens. So for me, the pro with rocks are that they look neater. It feels like they're less maintenance. Now, if you get the little rocks, those can blow. Those can blow all over the place. And the leaf blowers that our landscaping guys use, they're very powerful. So the smaller rocks will blow. But I would be looking at like the medium-sized rocks that aren't blowing. So I feel like that rocks is going to take less maintenance and look good for a longer period of time, and you can kind of control what your garden is doing easier, especially if you're planting potted plants, and that it's going to actually save money in the long run. Cons: too hot. Rocks raise the soil temperature and radiate heat long after the sun sets, leading to stress-thirsty plants. Clean out. Litter and debris have to be cleaned out from among the rocks to maintain their appearance. This is a time-consuming task that also robs nutrients from the soil, which must be replaced with fertilizer. Watch the pH. Most trees prefer acidic soil. So rocks create alkaline soil, which can hurt most trees. Return of the weeds. Wind will eventually blow soil between rocks, creating soft spot for weeds to grow. Remove by hand. If you want to remove the stones, you must do it manually, which can be tedious. So for me, the cons for rocks, which is why I actually initially decided to go with planting some plants in mulch again, is that they didn't seem to be very good for planting for plants. If you want to have like a pretty garden with lots of flowers and plants, they didn't seem to be good for that. And I looked at some of my neighbors yards and landscaping, and the rocks, to me, it just looks so cold, like not like pretty with flowers flourishing everywhere. It just looks so stone cold, literally. So I was like, I want to plant. I actually kind of enjoy pulling up the weeds and getting out there in the sun, get a little exercise. I have an excuse to be outside. So I see like the traffic in my neighborhood. I see my neighbors and I could wave to people rather than just sitting outside in my driveway with my legs crossed, just looking around and talking to people that way. Yes, I did that. I know, very weird, probably looks strange. But as you can see, that's why I was like, I want to be able to get out there and get my hands dirty and plant in my garden, have an excuse to be outside in front of my house. And rocks is going to, one, be bad for my plants, and two, kind of take that away from me. So that's why I was like, I'm going to start with planting my plants in mulch. I was still considering rocks to line my little garden areas. I'll show you like what it kind of looks like, just to go around it, so it kind of separates the planted area from the grass. And so I was still wanting to look at rocks. So I go to this landscaping bulk landscaping store to, well, not store, but it's out like kind of in the middle of nowhere, and they just have like piles of mulch and rocks and concrete and the what do they call it, like the things that separate, I wish I knew what it was called right now at this moment, but it separates, like it controls your planted area. They have piles of that, and you buy it in bulk. So I go there to look at prices that way, because as I'm doing research and learning online, that's the best way to get your landscaping stuff, like if you're going to be needing a lot of rocks or mulch or whatever. So I go there, and this guy that works there comes to me. He's very friendly, and I'm telling him what I was planning to do, and he just gave me some really good points to think about. He basically said that, and I showed him like the side of my house where I planted these plants, and he was like, he would never plant plants along the side of his house because they can grow down into like the framing of your house, and it could become a big mess. And he also pointed out that one of my shrubs like just grows out like crazy, and it's like out of control. He had those and he picked them out. And that he would go with rocks because the mulch, all of the things that I've already like shared, also the wear and tear that the plants can have on your house that way, and that with rocks, it's easier to kill the weeds. With weed killer, you just spray the weed killer in between the rocks. You don't have to pull it out because you're just not like with the mulch. And he talked to me about like having like the nice planters on top of the rocks with all your plants in there. And I think that if that's done well, it does look really nice. I haven't seen it really done well, but on Pinterest and on pictures I looked online, I have seen some really nice modern looking rock with planters, and that can still get me outside, nurturing and loving on my plants on top of the rocks, and it can look really nice. So anyway, long story short, he kind of convinced me. Oh, important thing that he said, never to mix the rocks with the mulch, because the rocks, as the leaf blower guys come along, the rocks get all tangled in with the mulch as the rocks move around, and you have to pick the rocks out of the mulch, and it could be a hot mess. And if it rains and water lifts everything up and moves everything around, so if there's like a rain or flooding or any type of like standing water, it'll move everything around, rocks mixed with mulch, everything mixed into each other, and it'll look a hot mess and be very time consuming to clean that up. So that changed my mind. And where I live, I have seen like a little bit of like standing water. So that literally changed my mind. So now I'm thinking, okay, maybe it would be better to go with the rocks. Okay, so here comes the story time. Mind you, the guy that was helping me, he was cute. He was like handsome, like rugged guy. And I felt like there was a little bit of flirtation there. So I was like, but he didn't like ask me for my phone number or anything like that. Of course, like he's at work. So I'm like, okay, but it just definitely felt like, and trust me, when I say I am so, I don't know when someone's flirting. I am so blind to that. So someone could be flirting with me and it'll go right over my head so easy. But so if I pick up on it, then it's real flirting. So but so I told him like I'm not gonna get anything now. He was like, oh, I didn't mean to like change your mind, make you not buy anything. I was like, okay, so I have to go think on this now and then I'll come back. So my neighbors, who were kind of like gonna be coordinating our gardens together because we share a wall. It's kind of like a villa. So it'll look better if we like kind of stay on the same page. So we talk about this. So when I told them, okay, I'm back to thinking about doing the rocks, and I went to this place, and they're like, oh, can you get a price? Can you get an estimate? And I was like excited to say, yeah, I can get an estimate, because then that means I got to go back there and talk to the guy. So I was so excited to go back to the place and talk to the guy and try to get the estimate. So I go back the next day and he's there. And first thing he says is like, he looks super happy and excited to see me. And the first thing he says is, oh, I'm so glad you came back. I was wondering, and I was hoping you would come back, or thinking about, I can't wait for you to come back. And I was like, what? Really? I was like, okay. So he's showing me the rocks. He's making little puns. So I was looking at gray rocks and these like gray ice rocks and these white rocks, because I actually finally decided to get smart and do a color wheel. And I saw that the color of my house, the best type of color combination that I liked would be like a grayscale color of rocks with like different scales of gray and white rocks look good up against my house. And I actually showed that to my neighbors too, and they liked that too. I gave them other options too, but we all agreed that looks the best with the color of our house. So we were looking at those rocks, and they didn't at this place where I was at, they didn't really have that grayscale combination. So now he's like showing me all the rocks and taking me to the different rocks, and we're like looking at how to put them together to make it look like the picture. And so he's making little jokes, like these little black rocks with white specks. And he's like, I like black and white together. Mind you, the guy is white. So he's like, I like black and white together. And he's like, I call it salt and pepper. He's making little jokes or whatever. And flirting, like the flirting went up notches went up. So I'm like, okay, he's definitely going to ask me for my number now. But I had my paper with the measurements of my house. So I was like, so can you give me an estimate? Here's the paper with my measurements. So then he tells me the lady who works there and is good with doing the measurements, the estimate of how many rocks you need based on the measurement of the area isn't there and won't be back until the following week. So I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can just leave my phone number with you and a copy of this paper, and you can call me with the estimate when she's back next week. And he was like, oh yeah. So he takes my phone number, he takes a copy of the paper, takes my phone number, and he puts it in his phone. And so then that was it. So then I'm walking around like, okay, I'll wait for your call Monday. And so then he says, I get like almost to my car. I'm like 6 feet away. And so then he goes, oh, should I call you from my phone now so you know it's me when I'm calling Monday? And I said, yeah, sure. And so he calls me, and then I get the call and I'm in my car. I text and said, I got you locked in. And so then he texts and he says, this is the spelling of my name. He has a very uncommon name, and it's not spelled the way you would think it's spelled. And so I made a little joke. Okay, good. I could put your name in the right way. I spelled it wrong. And then he says, I'll let you have this one. You could act like you never. Anyways, a little banner going back and forth. And then he says, then he called me, but I figured it was an accidental dial. So I didn't answer because it was like one ring. You know how it rings and hangs up fast? You know it's an accidental dial. So then he texts and says, sorry, that was an accident call. And I said, oh, okay, I figured that was an accidental dial. And he said, and then he wrote back, but Monday when I call you, it'll be for real. And I said, I text back, or you can call before Monday. That was like my way of trying to like, all right, like maybe he was scared to like make the first move because I'm a customer, he's at work, and he didn't want to like put himself in a situation where like maybe he was reading the situation wrong, and if he made the first move that can mess him up with work. So I went ahead and made like that first little effort. And so then he texts back about what am I doing this weekend, clear your schedule. And so there we go. So I said, I will work on clearing my schedule and let you know. And then he said, work hard on it or something like that. So what happened was I started to have like some doubts, and I was like, do I clear my schedule? Do I do this? Was this asked the right way? Like, is this going correctly? Because I'm 2 years out of the dating game. So I'm like, my mind is going crazy. Like, how, like, what should I be able to do? Like, I don't know. My mind was going crazy. So for some reason, I decided to go look him up on Facebook. And I did that because I realized, I was like, wait, he has a very uncommon name. I'm pretty sure if I put in even his first name, which is all I had, literally that's how uncommon his name is. And the area where I live now is not a big, huge area. It's like not a huge city where, like if I was in a place like New York and I had an uncommon name, there still would probably be lots of people with that name. You know what I'm saying? I hope you understand what I'm saying. So I decided to look him up on Facebook, see if I could find him, and he came right up. And I'm scrolling through his Facebook page on his profile pictures, and like the third profile picture over is him holding up a Confederate flag. Yes. And so I'm like, this has to be a red flag, right? Yeah. So that's what happened. I hate to leave you hanging, but that's the story time. So I never text him back after that, and he didn't text or call me all weekend either. That pretty much like canceled him. I actually was still a little bit like, well, because I asked my friend was like, well, in the South, that just means that they love the South. I'm like, I don't know if I can give it that either anymore these days, but I was still sort of like, maybe I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but not really. And then I just was like, nah, I can't do it. No. And it wasn't that long ago. It was like 3 years ago. So yeah, so that was it. And yeah, maybe when I actually finish my garden, I'll have a conclusion to this. I don't know if I'm going to get my rocks there or not. Still going to get the call next week. And I don't know. That I don't have a conclusion. I hope that doesn't make me terrible at the story time. The last 2 years, there has been no potential date action at all. Like no flirting, nothing. I've just been head down, trying to get my house, working on schools, goals, and, sobriety, things like that. And there has been no movement. And so I guess this is the first time I actually was giving like flirt signals back to somebody to even get this far. So that's why it's significant to me, is because I'm like ready now to start meeting people. And then this little thing happens and I was excited. And then Confederate flag. It's kind of funny now that I say it, Confederate flag, because like red flag, Confederate flag, flag on the play. Anyway, so that's it. I will let you guys know what ends up happening with my landscaping, what I end up going with, and I'll keep you guys posted. But it still looks like it's going to be rocks for me. I want to do like a very modern rock landscaping. That's where I'm at right now. But then again, my mind changes all the time. So we'll see, and I'll keep you guys posted. Bye.